good enough, and I just said, go back and write some more, and things like that. So I mean, then Roger will come up with something like Radio Gaga, and it's perfect. It's wonderful, and then I do encourage them.
On November 24th, 1991, Freddie Mercury died inside his home, Garden Lodge, just one day after telling the world the truth about his health. He was 45, and for years, that house had remained almost completely closed off from the outside. When the doors finally opened, the people closest to him began to see a side of his life that had been carefully kept out of public view. So what exactly was hidden inside those walls? And why did it leave even those who knew him best completely unprepared? Join us as we uncover what was inside Freddie Mercury's London home. The house nobody could see from the street. Garden Lodge sits on Logan Place in the heart of Kensington, one of the most expensive and most intensely observed neighborhoods in London. And yet, the house itself is completely invisible from the road. It is set back behind an 8-foot Edwardian brick security wall, topped with an even higher spiked fence, and equipped with security cameras along its entire perimeter. Standing on the street outside, no one would know there was a significant property behind that wall. Freddie Mercury bought the house in 1980 for £500,000, paying the full asking price in cash on the same day he first viewed it. He was house hunting in London with Mary Austin, who later inherited the property, and they had come through the famous green door on a summer afternoon to find children playing in the garden and a quietness that was almost impossible to reconcile with being in the middle of central London. Mary later recalled standing behind Freddie as they walked through the entrance, feeling the place's peace wash over her. Freddie stepped outside into the garden and told the owner to take the house off the market immediately. He would pay the asking price now. The house had been built between 1908 and 1909 in the Neo-Georgian style. Originally constructed for an artistic couple, the painter Cecil Rhea and his wife Constance Halford, who was a sculptor. It was designed by architect Ernest William Marshall and set on an acre of landscaped grounds. Before Freddie, it had been owned by Peter Wilson, the chairman of Sotheby's auction house, who had also been a member of British intelligence, which makes the property's history considerably more interesting than a simple sequence of wealthy owners would suggest. Before Wilson, it had been in the possession of the Hoare banking family. Mary told an interviewer that when the Hoare family showed them around the property on that first visit, the previous owner pointed to a particular room on the ground floor and explained matter-of-factly that the room contained the family's safe, and that his father would sleep at the bank when he couldn't sleep there, and bring all the money home when he couldn't sleep at the bank. Freddie found this information delightful. He hired interior architect and designer Robin Moore ED to help realize his vision for the space. And what followed was several years of active transformation that turned a beautiful but conventional upper-class London property into something that reflected a very specific and very unusual creative mind. He called it his country house in central London, which captures exactly what he wanted it to be, a place of genuine retreat and genuine peace that happened to sit within walking distance of Kensington High Street. The house had 8 bedrooms, a studio drawing room that was the largest ground floor space, and had originally served as the artist studio for the property's founders, a dining room, a Japanese room, a mirrored dressing room decorated in Art Deco style, and an ensuite bathroom where the marble had been engraved with the initials FM. He did not do things by halves. And the transformation he oversaw turned a house into a world, one that his closest friends found genuinely staggering when they finally began to understand its full scope. But before we go through what was actually inside, room by room, we need to understand the woman who kept those rooms exactly as he left them for more than 30 years, and why she finally decided the time had come to let the world in. Mary Austin and 30 Years of Keeping the Secret. Mary Austin inherited Garden Lodge and all of its contents when Freddie Mercury died in 1991. She also inherited approximately half of his estimated £75 million estate. She had been present at the house when he died, which is consistent with who she had always been in his life, the person who stayed, regardless of what the circumstances required of her. Their relationship is one of the more genuinely unusual and genuinely moving stories in the history of rock music. They had met in 1969 when Freddie was 24 years old, 5 years after moving to England and before Queen had formed. They became close immediately, fell into a romantic relationship, and became engaged. Freddie eventually told Mary that he was gay, which ended the romantic relationship but did not end the bond between them. It simply changed its shape into something that neither of them ever found a simple word for. Freddie said of Mary, "All my lovers asked me why they couldn't replace Mary, but it's simply impossible. The only friend I've got is Mary, and I don't want anybody else. To me, she was my common-law wife. To me, it was a marriage." He bought her a home near Garden Lodge so they would always be close. When he became seriously ill, she was with him. When he died, she was there. She moved into Garden Lodge after his death and stayed for more than 30 years. During all of that time, she made a very specific and very deliberate choice. She kept everything exactly as he had left it. The rooms remained as he had arranged them. The collections remained in the positions he had chosen. The piano sat where it had always sat. The art hung where he had hung it. The house became, in her own words, the most glorious memory box, because it has such love and warmth in every room. She has lived an extremely private life since his death. She has rarely given interviews. She has not sought the kind of public profile that proximity to Freddie's legacy could easily have generated. She simply lived in the house, looked after the collections, and kept the world on the other side of the green door, where the fans gathered to leave flowers and photographs and handwritten messages of love for a man they had never met. In April 2023, she announced that the time had come. She was going to sell Freddie Mercury's belongings at auction through Sotheby's, in a sale she described as the most difficult decision of her life, but also the right one. She said she needed to put her affairs in order. She said the years had passed and the chapter needed to close. The auction was titled Freddie Mercury, A World of His Own, which was the name he had given to the vision of Garden Lodge, a complete private world built precisely to his specifications, away from every version of himself the public thought it knew. What the Sotheby's team found when they began the process of cataloging Garden Lodge's contents is what the rest of this story is about. Because even the people who knew the house well were not prepared for the scale of what had been quietly accumulated inside those 8-foot brick walls. The rooms and what was hiding in them. The studio drawing room is the largest space on the ground floor of Garden Lodge, and it was the room that Freddie Mercury used for entertaining, which means it was the room that the people who visited him most frequently would have been most familiar with. Its walls were painted a vibrant yellow with gilded cornices. Its floors were wooden. Its fireplace was made of ornate stone. The room contained a staircase leading to an upstairs area that Freddie had redesigned as a bar and minstrels gallery, overlooking the main space and the garden beyond. At the center of the room sat the Yamaha Baby grand piano on which Freddie composed Bohemian Rhapsody. This is not a sentimental claim or an approximation. The piano on which Bohemian Rhapsody was written was sitting in a private house in Kensington for more than 40 years before most of the world knew it was there. When it went to auction at Sotheby's in September 2023, it sold for £1.7 million. The stool that he had used with the piano, purchased as part of a suite from Harrods, and described in the auction catalog as Freddie's favorite piano stool, sold separately for £48,000. The dining room was on the ground floor and had been the subject of considerable personal creative effort by Freddie himself. When he could not get a decorator to achieve the specific color combinations and designs he wanted on the walls, he simply painted them himself. The result was a set of designs in pink, green, and yellow that covered the dining room walls in a pattern that was entirely his own work. The room hosted at least 14 formal dinner parties over the years, complete with planned menus and handwritten seating arrangements. One of those seating plans included a designated space for his cat, Oscar. A dinner in that room was where the concept for the Barcelona album was first discussed with opera singer Montserrat Caballé, making it one of the more historically significant dining rooms in British music history. The dining room also contained artwork by Marc Chagall and Henri Matisse, which is the kind of detail that tends to stop people mid-sentence when they encounter it for the first time. The last painting Freddie ever purchased, acquired just 1 month before he died, was a work by the French painter James Tissot that had been sitting in the dining room of Garden Lodge for more than 3 decades by the time the Sotheby's team got to it. It was estimated to fetch between £400,000 and £600,000 at auction. Freddie's dressing room featured floor-to-ceiling mirrors and was decorated in the Art Deco style. This was the room where he put on the white trainers and attended to the mustache that became one of the most recognizable features of his public image. The ensuite bathroom adjoining his bedroom had the initials FM engraved in the marble, which is not the most understated thing a person has ever done with a bathroom, but is very specifically in character for the man who conceived it. And then there was the Japanese room. The Japanese obsession that nobody fully understood. Of all the things that the people closest to Freddie found genuinely surprising when the full scope of Garden Lodge's contents became visible, the depth and the seriousness of his collection of Japanese art were perhaps the most revelatory. Most people who thought they knew Freddie Mercury through his music and his performances had no idea how completely Japanese aesthetics had shaped the private world he was building in Kensington. The Japanese room at Garden Lodge was situated to the left of the entrance to the house. Mercury used it as a personal retreat, a space for quiet reflection that the people who knew him understood was not to be disturbed. Mary Austin described it specifically as his private space, somewhere the household knew not to interrupt him when he was there. The room's contents and the collection distributed throughout the house included antique furniture, porcelain from the Edo to Showa periods, lacquered boxes, and pagoda-backed japanned chairs. Among the specific pieces was a rare 17th-century porcelain kakemon bowl decorated with ho-oh birds that was considered one of the most significant items in the entire collection. The centerpiece of the Japanese room was a baby grand piano from John Broadwood and Sons dating back to 1900, decorated with chinoiserie scenes, a piano that Freddie had purchased in New York in 1977 and had eventually moved to Garden Lodge, where it was positioned in the bay window of the Japanese room. That piano sold for £444,000 at auction. The Japanese art collection also included what turned out to be one of the most valuable pieces in the entire sale, a print entitled Sudden Shower over Shin-Ohashi Bridge and Atake by the 19th century ukiyo-e master Utagawa Hiroshige, part of his famed 100 Views of Edo series. The estimate for this print, going into the auction, was up to £50,000. It sold for £292,000, more than 5 times the top estimate. The house had also been designed to reflect Japanese aesthetics externally. The garden at Garden Lodge was laid out in a Japanese style, with magnolia trees that bloom in blush pink in spring a wooden pergola, and a carp pond. Freddie had worked closely with landscapers to create a serene outdoor retreat that functioned as an extension of the private world he was building inside the walls. The garden was the first thing you encountered once you passed through the famous green door, and the effect was immediate and total. The noise of one of London's busiest neighborhoods disappeared, and you were standing in a cultivated silence that felt like it existed in a completely different part of the world. The Sotheby's team found themselves cataloging more than 200 kimonos, alongside the Japanese woodblock prints and artifacts, the porcelain pieces, and the lacquerware that filled rooms throughout the house. The auction, dedicated specifically to the Japanese collection, made more than £2.6 million. That is the scale of a collection that Freddie Mercury had built across decades without most of the world knowing it existed at all. However, that's far from all. Freddie had secrets hidden in one of his songs, and the meaning behind those lyrics has now been revealed. The Bohemian Rhapsody lyrics and what they revealed. Among all the things found inside Garden Lodge, the item that produced the most significant revision of what people thought they understood about Freddie Mercury was not the most expensive or the most visually striking. It was a set of handwritten working lyrics. The handwritten working lyrics for Bohemian Rhapsody were part of the Sotheby's auction and sold for £1.4 million. What made them genuinely startling was what they revealed about how the song had developed, specifically that Freddie's original working title for the composition was not Bohemian Rhapsody, but Mongolian Rhapsody. The scrawled notes showed the compositional process of one of the most analyzed songs in the history of popular music in a completely unguarded form. With words crossed out and rewritten, structures changed, and ideas tried and discarded across pages that had been sitting in a private house in Kensington for 30 years. The working title alone shifted something in how people understood the creative process behind the song. Not the final polished product that had been discussed and dissected and theorized about for decades, but the actual working draft is chaotic, incomplete, provisional, and entirely human in a way that the finished song's extraordinary architecture tends to obscure. The handwritten lyrics were displayed as part of the Freddie Mercury, a world of his own exhibition that ran at Sotheby's in London from August to September 2023, timed to coincide with what would have been Freddie's 77th birthday. The exhibition attracted a global audience of more than 140,000 visitors. Bids were placed by buyers from the United Kingdom, North America, Germany, Italy, Japan, Australia, Mexico, Brazil, and more than 50 other countries. The 6-part auction series raised a total of $50 million. Sotheby's sales director, David MacDonald, described Garden Lodge as having revealed its layers of treasures over the months of cataloging in a way that felt like opening a Russian doll, each layer revealing something more surprising underneath. He said the collections took the team on a glorious adventure through Freddie's imagination. As the final pieces were uncovered and the full story of the house came into view, one question lingered. What happens when something so personal, so sacred, is suddenly put up for sale? The green door at the entrance to Garden Lodge's garden, the door that fans had been covering in handwritten messages, photographs, and declarations of love since 1991, was sold at the Sotheby's auction with an estimate of between £15,000 and £25,000. It sold for £412,000. A replacement door was installed and covered in protective clear casing. The original door, which had functioned as an unofficial monument to Freddie Mercury for more than 3 decades, went home with a private buyer. In February 2024, Mary Austin listed Garden Lodge itself for sale for offers above £30 million, equivalent to approximately $38 million. It was the first time the property had been on the market since Freddie's death in 1991. She described the experience of standing in the emptied house, emptied now of the piano, the art, the kimonos, the porcelain, the Tissot painting, the working lyrics, and everything else that had made it what it was, as being transported back to the first time she and Freddie had viewed it together on that summer afternoon in 1980. She said it now had the same feeling it had had before Freddie moved his belongings in. A beautiful, quiet, peaceful house in central London, waiting for the next person whose life it was going to contain. Which room of Garden Lodge do you think reveals the most surprising side of who Freddie Mercury actually was? And if you could own one item from the Sotheby's auction, which piece would you choose and why? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.